Hey, welcome to Impact Moments powered by 90, where we're exploring the small light bulb moments, impactful things that happen as we're going through this entrepreneurial leader journey. I am Christine Watts,
I'm Kris Snyder.
and we're joined by Kevin. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about you and your business.
Sure. So my name's Kevin von Keyserling. I am presently the CEO of ReadySet Surgical. ReadySet is a supply chain management software company. We communicate between the hospital and the equipment manufacturer. So think about the person who's making a medical implant that's going to go inside the human body. And we handle the logistics of the transportation, the communication about the patient's information with the OEM.
And so for those that are like participating at home, if you watch like a drama in a hospital, that tray that shows up to the surgery, that's your guys' moment, right? Is
Yes,
that fair,
yeah,
Kevin?
yes.
That's the moment.
Yeah, we want to communicate from the surgeon's office all the biometric information about the patient to the equipment manufacturer. So think of a Zimmer or Johnson and Johnson or Medtronic. All their biometrics, so height, size, weight, BMI, ethnicity, sex, so that the OEM then can size the implant correctly, get it to the hospital on time, into the OR on time for first cut.
I'm okay if my Amazon book doesn't show up on time, but I'm thinking if my surgical doesn't show up at the right time, that's probably a problem.
It is a problem. Yeah, you hate to reschedule a surgery because the equipment isn't there. That
Yeah.
kind of messes up everybody's day.
How did you get into this business?
That's a long story.
Or maybe a short one. Depends how he decides.
It was funny. I was in my prior life, I was retiring from my operating role in the company and moving on to think about other things I wanted to pursue in life. And a local venture capital firm called me and said, "Hey, we've got a company that is looking for a new CEO. We thought you'd be a nice fit." And one thing led to the next. And I thought, yeah, this is something that looks interesting. And interesting enough that I wanted to put some real time, blood, sweat, and tears into it. And so I jumped in with both feet.
Nice. So when did you guys meet?
So I'm going to brag on Kevin because he
Okay.
won't brag on himself because
Okay.
he's a good entrepreneur. But the prior company got called Keyfactor, right? It wasn't
It's Keyfactor.
when we first met, but Keyfactor. And today Keyfactor is worth how much money? Enterprise value?
It's a unicorn.
Yeah, billion, two.
It's a multi-unicorn.
There we go. There we go. But he built it, right? Like you saw it from pretty early stages and days. You and I had plenty of times where we talked about like how to get it there. I became your EOS coach. You guys ran on 90. You had a great exit. Like my words, not yours. I'll just let my words land. You don't have to like comment. And then he was in that moment of going like, what do I do next? How do I give back? How do I do another thing? And that's when you got approached again from someone who says, hey, we have this company here in Northeast Ohio. We want to make it work. Could you come in, bring your talents and resources to make it work?
Yeah, that's a very fair summary, Chris.
Yeah.
I do reflect back on when we first met in the journey that you took me on with EOS and getting involved in the planning system. It was really interesting because at the time, Keyfactor was a consulting company that was called Certified Security Solutions. And we had this concept for a software product that we could build to help manage cryptography, cryptographic algorithms for large enterprises. And it was kind of a dream. We thought we could do something with it. And I was trying to figure out how do we transition a consulting company's culture into a software as a service platform. And Kris really helped me map out that journey, and the rest is history. It was great. So when I came over to ReadySet, I'm like, I want to do the EOS thing again. I'm like, Kris, you ready to sign up again to help me transition a company? And it's been a lot of fun and a great journey.
I still see your weekly level 10 meetings come through 90, how you guys are rating them, the issues you're solving. So it's awesome.
It's an interesting platform for me. I was originally using the EOS system in 90 really for the leadership team, and it was primarily our communication vehicle and a way to hold our team accountable, and particularly me accountable. So as we started using it and embracing it, we started thinking like, why are we just constraining this to the leadership team? Like we should really have this throughout the entire business so that all of the coworkers are using the same format, the same planning system, using the same terminology. and became an accountability tool for the whole company. And I think about it, it's the way the frontline coworker now holds me accountable to get my job done.
All right. So Kris and I are having a moment because we're like, we love that. Because like
Yeah.
the fact that you said it's what we say all the time,
Yeah.
because it stops so often. EOS and 90 stop at the leadership team. And then the CEO, the visionary, they don't think about the rest of it. And we always say like the accountability charts, you're who's who in the zoo and who keeps you accountable. And that's like them keeping you accountable as a CEO. And that's amazing.
Yeah, there's always pockets of resistance when you try to adapt a new tool, a new system, a new framework. And eventually, if you keep after it and persistent with it, those pockets and factions that don't want to participate disappear. I am proud to say that one of my COO, who was probably a little resistant to using 90 and using 90 to do our own one-on-ones. She's like, yeah, we don't need to do that. A little bit old school. And Kris knows John well. And John finally came around and said, I think we should probably be using 90 to do our one-on-ones. And it was John's like, I need to hold you accountable to what you're committing to. And the light bulb went off.
Yeah, I am curious about those layers of resistance as you were trying to bring it throughout the organization. What were those, and what did you do to help make sure everybody understood the real intent behind it?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was getting a common framework established in a methodology or a protocol for how we were going to make decisions, how we would frame up what a problem was. In 90, in EOS planning, you would call it an issue. I didn't really particularly like the term issue. It implied that I have an issue with something. And I'm like, yeah. So we renamed it. Kris was like, why don't you just call it a deep dive topic?
Whatever you want.
Rename it deep dive. And so we started putting these deep dive topics together and differentiating between what's a quick 5-minute headline versus a deep dive initiative. And just that little twist help people really start to frame up, okay, I've got an issue or a deep dive topic that I want to bring to the leadership team and I want to pull it apart. And so it gave us a framework to set it up, really outline what it was, get agreement that we all understand what the subject was that we're trying to tackle and what the outcome was. And then as we started working on it through the leadership team, all the department heads, my direct reports started saying, hey, I want to start using this to run my one-on-one meetings. I want to start using this to run my team meetings. And because the terminology and the framework and the methodology had been established, it really helped us navigate going from what I call tribal knowledge to systemic knowledge throughout the business.
Yeah.
And created a system that we could all operate with.
Yeah, I feel like I hear that a lot where it's just like the streamlined communication, we're all speaking the same language makes such a difference. So that's really cool to hear that you had kind of that organic approach where people were saying like, I want to start doing this. And then the getting everybody on board just created that next layer of consistency.
Yeah, in fact, today it's funny. We actually use the software not only to do like our team meetings, leadership calls, but every Friday we do an all hands call, and on the counter Friday we do what we call a lunch and learn. So we actually use 90 to run the all hands call for the company all up, and it allows the frontline folks to put in their headlines. They want to call out and recognize somebody's performance. Somebody did a great job. They just put that in as a headline. And then when they have something they want to teach, it's a subject, they put that as a deep dive topic for a lunch and learn. So it's really neat to see the adoption in it, kind of like it's spread like a virus throughout the company.
Have you noticed an impact from before you had that to after now, like how people are feeling, what the culture is like, anything like that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple takeaways for me. One, it's a common system to report our KPIs. How are we doing in the business? What are the key performance metrics for each department? So each department now has a dashboard. We cover that dashboard in the first part of the call to say, is there anything off track? What do we need to do to bring it back on track? So it's a good way for us to look at the numbers. There's also all kinds of to-do items that come out of any meeting, like, okay, who's going to sign up to do this? Yep. So now we could just track that right in the system. So we're like, oh, who said they were going to own that? Who said they were going to get that done? And what was the outcome supposed to look like? So it's a way for us to document what's happening in the business. And I think the end result is we get through more material faster, we hold ourselves accountable, and we're getting more done.
And Christine, before we started this podcast today, KVK and I were joking about like living on our calendars.
Yeah.
If it's not on my calendar, I'm sorry. Like it's not happening. To-dos are the same way for me. Like
Yeah.
if you give me a to-do in a meeting, I'll get it to done. Like literally yesterday I was like talking with one of our 90 team members because they gave me a to-do and they're like, "Hey, is it done yet?" I'm like, "No, it's due on the 13th." And like, no, I'm like, no, I saw the date.
Yeah.
It was the 13th. I'm not doing it till it's due on the 13th. Like that's my world, right? Like, so
Yeah.
when you put the system in place, I can live in the system. Otherwise, that's not my agreement. My agreement is to the calendar, to the to do, and that's how I get it to done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. You had mentioned to me, Kris, some time ago about taking it one step further and thinking about using the system for our board meetings. And I'm like, oh God, how would
Yeah.
that work? And I'm like, do I really want to do that? Do I want to get away from my standard PowerPoint? So I've been teaching the board about 90
There
and
you
how
go.
to operate it, how we're going to sign up for to-dos, how we're going to build the board agenda. I think it's a far more effective way to manage the board, the expectations, and the outcomes from those meetings.
I was in New York last week for a software company I'm coaching right now, $30 million in ARR. And I said the same thing to them. They're like, oh, we can't do that. I'm like, but what if you did? What if you actually had the board packet that goes out? Who cares about the board packet? They should read it, right? And then we just have an issues list, a key topic, the things you actually want to break down, bring their whole thing into. And the CEO like reached out to me the other day. He's like, I think I'm gonna do it. I'm like, be brave. Like push beyond because all of us were trained like we didn't do that. Like we just pushed out board packets. But what if you lived in the issues, the key topics that are meaningful to you as a CEO?
It's funny. There is one downside to bringing the board in to participate in the 90 system, is now they want to bring it to their other portfolio companies, and they're like, "Hey, KVK, could you jump on a call and tell them about 90 and how it works?"
Christine would be happy
Yeah,
to.
send
She
them
would
my way,
love
yeah.
to do that, by the way. We got you.
Yeah.
But
Delegate.
I think you did already pick up one new client with that North Coast Ventures.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
they were like, hey, "Why do you like 90? Tell me about how you're using it." And that one thing led to the next.
Yeah.
Yes,
100%.
yes. Nice. Well, we brought you here today to share an impact moment with us. So, what came to mind for you when we asked about the impact moment, the thing that really had a change or thing that happened where you had an aha moment?
The first impact moment and I mentioned this earlier when we started to chat, was when I was trying to move the company from a consulting company to a managed services model and then to a B2B SaaS model. It was a big, heavy lift from a culture standpoint to change people's thinking and to start to orient us towards new KPIs. So in the consulting world, I thought about hourly bill rates, utilization, the typical kind of metrics you would think about with a consulting business. But when you move to a software as a service model, the metrics that you want to measure and track change dramatically. So you start thinking about MRR, or monthly recurring revenue, your average contract value. How do you move that up? And so I think 90 was really pivotal in helping us transform the culture of the company from a consulting business into a SaaS company culture. And it gave everybody a common language and framework to really address some challenging hurdles in the business. And the aha moment for me came when folks were coming back to me, framing up the problem in the framework that 90 advocates for. And I'm like, wow. And it was moving from tribal systems to systemic knowledge for the business. So I give 90 a lot of credit in the EOS methodology to allowing that to happen for the business.
Tell me more about that culture change that you talked about. What did that look like?
It was difficult. One of the issues was we thought that we could just take consultants and put them into software development roles. Well, they're good at working on site, solving this type of problem. They know how to write code. We can transition them writing code on the engineering team. That was a miss. I was definitely off in thinking that type of person that you hire for that role would just automatically transition over. There were a couple successes where it did work, but in the big picture, it wasn't as smooth as I would have liked it to have been. So that was a real challenge culturally to adjust to. And then the ways and the things that we looked at of how we interacted with customers and clients began to shift and change.
How did you, like, move through those seat changes when you realized, "Hey, this isn't working out?" Like, how did you deal and manage with that situation?
Yeah, so a lot of it was thinking about, I think the standard way in the way a lot of people tackle these assignments is they think about an org chart versus a responsibility chart. And so it's saying, here's what you were responsible for in your previous role. Here's what you need to be responsible for now in your new role, and making that really clear. And again, I think the software framework really helps you work through that and hold yourself accountable to the new responsibilities and forcing you to give up your old ways and adopt the new ways.
So if I KVK, so by the way, listeners, Kevin von Keyserling, I call KVK affectionately. So
As do most of my
I,
friends.
Oh, nice.
so one of the most the impact moment quarterly that we had, and I have never said the story before, so you might get mad at me and we can like delete it if you want to. But on every quarter, we like actually rate the previous quarter.
Yeah.
We go through like A, B, C, D. You've been through this before, Christine. How did we do? We rate the quarter. We go from there. And when I say that, like we look at lagging indicators, revenue and profit, however you hold it, leading indicators, and raw completion rate. So we got to case quarter, and I'm always like A, B, C, D team. Here, no one's ever rated an F before. Do
I
you
was the
remember this?
first.
You were the first F
I
I've ever
remember
had.
that moment.
It was like F, and it was an F quarter.
Yeah.
It was
Wait,
an F
but
quarter.
what was the situation? Was that, like, while you were still in transition, or
No,
when
no,
was
this was
it?
the business he's in now.
Oh
Yes.
gosh.
Yeah.
It hit a
Yeah.
really hard moment, but he was bold and brave, and the rest of I think the rest of your leaders like waiting for you to say it, and you're like, it's an F.
Wow.
Like we have failed, team. Like we're an F. Is that fair?
It's very fair, and it was a moment of truth and transparency of getting everybody on the same page. In virtually every metric and objective that we'd set out for the quarter, we missed. Now, granted, some of it was outside of our control, but there was a lot that was within our control. And even with what we could directly put our fingers on that we were accountable for, we missed. And we missed on every single metric you could imagine.
Wow.
And I'm like, it's politically incorrect, but I say it's a come to Jesus moment. Let's be honest with ourselves. Let's hold ourselves accountable, be transparent, and assess the situation. Now that we know it was an F, what are we going to do to move the performance upscale for the next
That's right.
quarter so we don't repeat this again?
Did that work? Did that jumpstart
You
things?
you lost.
did.
How many leaders did you lose after that?
Well, there was definitely a leadership transition.
There's
I think that 3 of my direct reports left the company
Yeah.
after that quarter.
But again, I give you credit because like you were bold. I've seen other F quarters when no one would call it. They're like, it's a C. I'm like, I think it's an F. Like not my decision. I coach. I don't get to do it. But you leaned into it and you called it an F.
Well, I even lost a board member over it.
Yeah.
So it was a comprehensive redo.
But you did it, which is the most important part for me.
Yeah, I mean, looking back in hindsight, it's the advantage of being 2020, looking backwards, and it was a moment of clarity, a moment of truth, and I think hitting it head on was the best way to do it. And we had a good framework within to address it, recognize like, hey, Kris would walk through the framework of, are we in the right role? Are you the right person for it? Is this what you want to do? And as people were on that truth serum, it came back and, it wasn't all in that one meeting, but over the course of the next few weeks, people said, this isn't the right role for me. This isn't what I want to do, and I want to move on.
Okay, so with that F quarter that happened and the team is in the room reacting to that, you're trying to move forward. Over the next quarter, 2 quarters, whatever it was, did it get worse before it got better?
That's a great question. I think the reality of the situation sat in for everyone, and we really started to recognize that our come to Jesus moment had happened. And now we had to really focus about where we wanted to go next and what we were going to do, what actions were we going to take to change it so the next quarter wasn't an F. Now, the next quarter wasn't an A, but it was much better.
Yeah.
And then you fast forward 18 months, and I'm really pleased at the progress we've made. We now have a sustainable go to market for the business. We're hitting those great KPIs for the B2B SaaS metrics of growing at over 50% a year organically on car. The gross margins are where they should be now. But it took that moment of really being honest and transparent with each other and saying, do we have the right people at the table to get us to where we need to be? And then going through that role definition and making sure that we had responsibilities aligned and the accountabilities aligned so that we never repeated a bad quarter again. And we're there today.
One of the things I thought you did extremely well in that moment was to not vilify sales. Because so often in growth companies, like sales gets vilified. Like they're the problem. But it's not that's not the problem. Like, I mean, they are maybe part of the problem, but they're not the whole problem. Like, there's product marketing, there's all the things that come with it along the way. There's customer success, there's all of it. And one of the things we talk about all the time is like first team. If you're in the room, you're on this team. This is the first team. Our number is our number, not that number. Like, not the one person's number, but everyone's number. And KVK did a great job that day of saying, hey, we failed, but we failed, not that person failed. Not the person who runs Rex, I think at the time was head of sales. It's like it's not his issue. It's our issue. We own this. We have to do this together in order to figure it out.
Chris, that's spot on. I think of like a football analogy, right? It takes the defense and the offense. They have to work together as a team. You can't blame we lost because we didn't score enough points, so it's the offense's fault. That's often what happens in B2B growth stage software companies, right? It's the revenue team's fault that we didn't make the number. But everybody in the business owns a part of that selling, owns a part of the go-to-market strategy. And that includes having the right product, right? And making the product has to have a value prop that the sales team can support. But it's everybody in the room is responsible for hitting the number, not just the sales team.
Do you think the team mindset, like, helped the go forward when you were trying to fix everything?
Yeah, one of the outcomes that came out of it was the other thing we did is some folks after that, the tough, it was a tough meeting, a tough discussion, right? It was like, okay, Kevin, I really need to understand what's my role in selling. How do I contribute to the go to market? And so then in everybody's responsibility, we outlined, hey, at stage one in the sales cycle, this is what your responsibility is. At stage two, this is what your responsibility is. So it made everybody know what activity and action they should be taking as we move deals through a pipeline. So it was a real sense of like, I am participating in this versus I'm listening to them tell me what happened.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. I've got 2 questions to wrap us up.
Sure.
So you've already been so generous to share some things that were really hard and that you worked through. I want to know, if you look back, what do you think your biggest fuck up was? You are like, man, I could have done everything differently. I wish I didn't do that. Do you have a moment that you think of?
Yeah, there's a number of moments, right? And it's going to be hard to pick the biggest one.
You're like,
Um,
on a
I,
scale of 1 to 10.
I think, in being very candid, when I first came into the role, I made a quick assessment the first 90 days of where the company was at, and then went out and raised a nice capital round for us to fund it. And then I launched too heavy into the go to market decision before we had validated that we had it right. And I burned cash unnecessarily in hindsight that I shouldn't have because I moved too quickly on thinking we had it figured out when we hadn't.
Hmm.
So everyone listen to that because we've seen that 1,000 times, KVK, like 1,000 times. I mean, and it's not on you. It's just like as entrepreneurs and leaders and aggressive people, that's what we do. We raise the cash and
You
we
run.
go, we run, and then we we sit back. We're like, oh, I should have done that.
Yeah.
It's hard.
There was, the step in the process of validating, right? And
Yeah.
I totally skipped the validation. Are my assumptions correct? Is my analysis of the market correct? And I rushed through those to hear answers that I wanted to hear versus listening to
Oh
facts.
yeah.
Well, last question then. I want to know, what podcast, book, article, series, what are you watching, listening to, reading that's like helping you grow that you're liking right now?
All right. Well, controversially, I'm reading a book that most people will hate, but
Love it.
I'm reading Elon Musk's biography and working through all of the ventures that he was involved in from his PayPal days through SpaceX, through Tesla, through the tunneling company. And it's remarkable how much that man can get done, and why I have some issues with his political views and his expression of those. I am astounded by his engineering prowess and his entrepreneurial spirit, of how much he can take on and what he can get done. Um, so when I take apart the political piece of it, and I look at how he looks at and evaluates markets and businesses, I now put on the chair behind me at my office. I have two SpaceX rocket ships, and they're to remind me every day of what the man on the moon goal is for ReadySet
Mm.
and where we can go as a business, and that this is possible, and we can hit another unicorn status at ReadySet too. So,
Wow.
it's a controversial book, but it's been really interesting read.
Yeah, but the stories and the things that happen along the
It's
way to
real.
learn from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the, his criticisms is that, the folks around him say, he just lacks empathy. Elon doesn't have empathy for the employee, and I sometimes reflect to myself, what's my balance on empathy and results? And I'm happy to say I'm not as hardcore as Elon on the empathy issue, but I think there's a balance in the middle that you can strike and still be very successful at as an entrepreneur, and still care about the people you work with.
Well, it sounds like you've balanced that extremely well with your exit and then the current business you're working on right now. So I really appreciate you being here and sharing so much and helping our listeners learn from that.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So if people do want to get in contact with you, what's the best way to do that?
Kevin at ReadySetSurgical.com.
Awesome.
Shoot me an email. Happy to engage.
Love it. Great. Well, thanks so much. We'll see everyone next time.